We are here once again with Bill Miller, who is the CEO of the American Gaming Association. And Bill, welcome back.
Happy to be here.
To your show, G2E. Yeah. And it is very evident by everyone we've spoken to so far today that business is back.
Yeah, it really is, Frank. And I mean, thank you so much for having me on and for being at G2E. I think that I remember doing this 1 year ago and putting on the show, and we still had to wear masks, and it had to be a vaccinated show, and there were a lot of hoops to jump through to actually get to that show, and it was successful. It's nothing like this one. This is real. This is big and going to be really, really successful.
Somebody said earlier today, I believe in this room, that it's sort of what we had hoped 2020 would be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, look, I've been in this job now 3.5 years, and so this is my fourth G2E. First one was 2019, which was a record year, and then we went to 2020 where we had a virtual G2E, which, you know, for some people was probably okay, but for most of us it was terrible. And 2021 was good, but this is probably 2020. This is that connection to pre-COVID.
Right. So let's start by giving us a little bit of an overview of what AGA has accomplished in the past year or so and some of your goals for the coming year or so.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that, you know, for us, it's the continuation of climbing out of that really difficult and dark place that we were in 2020. You know, we've seen record growth kind of quarter over quarter and year over year, but we still got a lot to come back from. And you know, we're seeing here business travel coming back and international travel coming back. But you know, we certainly have, you know, some important priorities that we need to work on as we're working on them in 2019, and then everything kind of paused. But a lot of things didn't pause. You know, we've been able to advance issues like, you know, the advancement in digital payments. We've been able to move increasing numbers of states to adopt sports betting and iGaming. And that those advances have been things that we've led on and trying to make sure that as we build out a regulated marketplace in the sports betting space particularly, that we're able to do it in a manner that, number one, protects the customer, two, moves people from the illegal market. And I think that you know, we've got a lot of work to do, particularly in protecting this nascent sports betting market, and making sure that our legal regulated industry is protected vis-a-vis these, you know, swarms of gray market, you know, unregulated or illegal machines that are popping up all over the country.
And they are popping up.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, I live in Florida.
Yeah.
And it seems like every strip shopping center has something called the Vegas Cafe 777. And, yeah, you know, you walk in and their little PCs set up where you play essentially slot games.
Yeah. Yep. Look, I'm, you know, happy about it. You know, every state's kind of taken this differently, and it is difficult. Look, I've spent most of my life either in government or in politics, and when you get down to the local level, these issues are much more challenging. And so, you know, I can empathize with the local sheriff or the mayor or the county official, or maybe even the state delegate or state senator. But at the end of the day, they have a job to do, and their job should be to protect consumers. And these machines have no consumer protections, and they don't pay any taxes, and they don't really employ anybody. But political pressures, as you get closer, you know, the local tavern owner says, really, what's so wrong about me having these three little machines that help me make it through a difficult, you know, right, economic period? And so I empathize with those politicians, But at the end of the day, we need law enforcement to do their job, and that's to protect the legal regulated marketplace.
So that's one priority.
Yep, huge
What are
one.
some of the others?
Well, I think that certainly trying to continue to introduce responsibility as we kind of move into a more modern environment. Look, we have different tools at our disposal. And so as we're transitioning from, in essence, what was almost, with the exception of Nevada, 100% illegal sports betting marketplace to the legal marketplace, making sure that all of the participants within that ecosystem, certainly the legal operators, it's part of our DNA. Like, responsibility is baked into this industry. But we have a whole array of new business partners, sports teams, leagues, arenas, broadcasters, and we need those people to understand that there's a shared responsibility that they have in this new business endeavor that they're going to see considerable amount of financial upside to. But it is a more than full-time job trying to make them understand that they have that shared responsibility. And so, like, that is another really, really important. I mean, like, doing everything that we can to kill off the illegal marketplace, whether it's the offshore online websites and the unregulated or illegal machines, is certainly a high priority. But commitment to responsibility, commitment to making sure that all of these new business partners that we have abide by that, really, really important. I think that we have a responsibility too, as an industry that continues to become more mainstream. And you just think about, you've been in this industry a little while. Like, it wasn't that long ago when the industry was kind of looked at, kind of looked down upon. We're looked at in the same way that almost every other industry in America is. We've been certainly treated that way now, certainly in federal aid package that we had to go through during COVID. But that also puts additional pressure on us to, really work hard on issues like, ESG and diversity and inclusion, and what is the role that the industry plays in environmental stewardship and others. And so we're leaning into those things really hard because we think that as a mainstream industry that we are now, we have those same mainstream obligations and responsibilities.
One area that is still tainted, if that is the right word, with some of the old doubts and concerns, that's been highlighted by the proliferation of online gaming and legal online gaming and legal sports betting, is this idea of protecting people from abusing gaming or being abused by gaming. And we're still in a situation, as I think we've discussed in the past, whereby a 12-year-old kid getting ready to watch the baseball game on TV tonight or the football game on Sunday afternoon is still going to be barraged with a lot of advertising appeals to gamble, some of which are very aggressive kinds of advertising. What is the AGA doing to make sure that the efforts to protect people against abuse are more than lip service?
I think it's a really important point, and I do think that it is an area that we have led on. The AGA, with our members, developed a responsible sports marketing and advertising code of conduct that was an extension of our AGA responsibility code of conduct as operators. And so, look, every one of these operators have a code of a code of conduct as it relates to responsibility for their license that they have within the state or tribal jurisdiction. But when sports betting and the advertising came out, we wanted to make sure that there were certain parameters in terms of, what types of advertising was being used, what groups were marketed. And I think that by and large, the industry has played the appropriate role of introducing sports betting to an audience that had only known it illegally, and one of the most powerful ways you can do that is via advertising. People didn't know, I mean, we do study and research all the time. People didn't know they were betting illegally. They just assumed that if they could go on a website and pay for an ad, or I'm sorry, pay to bet on sports, that it was legal. And so, the level of advertising, I think, if you look at it, probably the best barometer of when is first week of the NFL season, right? And 2021 to 2022 is flat. It's about the same amount of advertising from 2021 to 2022. And now we've finally gotten to a place where, half of American adults can bet on sports legally. It's a big change. And I think that for us, as it relates to advertising, it's a question of, making sure that we are doing it in an appropriate way. And I think about, I have two sons, 9 and 7. We watch sports every weekend, all weekend. And they see sports betting advertising, and they see beer commercials. I don't let my kids bet on sports, and I don't let them drink beer because they're 7 and 9. And I think that, so the responsibility is a shared responsibility for all of us. But we recognize that sports betting in a legal context is supposed to be a fun activity enjoyed by adults.
A couple of years ago, tax reform from a gaming industry's perspective was a priority. Is that still true?
Yeah, it is. I mean, certainly, the 2017 tax bill was something that lowered corporate taxes, and we think that was important for our industry as well as every other American industry. We were seeing far too many companies that were re-domiciling in other jurisdictions around the country, around the world, because of the corporate tax rates. And so we've lowered them, and I think that has contributed to more American flagged companies staying in America. But then as it relates to specific issues in and around the gaming industry, look, we've still got a couple of difficult ones. We've got kind of this slot tax threshold issue that hasn't been changed in, tens of years. And and moving that threshold up, from $1,200 to $5,000 is an important thing for us to do, and hopefully index it for inflation. But it is not an easy lift up on Capitol Hill because it costs money to change it, and it is it's an education challenge. And so we'll continue to fight for that. I think that the sports betting excise tax is one that I think we have a more reasonable chance in the short term to be able to, whether or not we're able to get it included in this season, the end of Congress's wrap-up session is unclear, but we certainly have some great champions on Capitol Hill. And I think that one of the things that, since I've been here, I'm kind of a product of Washington and a person who has lived in the swamp for most of my life. So, but I thought about, as we're going to build out congressional champions, where are we going to find them? For the gaming industry, and where we're going to find them and where we have found them is former state legislators who actually were involved in the movement of passage of an enactment of gambling legislation in their states. And those are the individuals who recognize the value that we brought to their states and to their communities. And I think that's been effective use of our lobbying work to try and achieve, sometimes we're playing defense and sometimes we're playing offense, but having the number of champions that we have up on the Hill is something that gives me great comfort.
Well, you mentioned earlier that it's now a mainstream industry, mainstream industry, and that's certainly something that I've observed. And as an old political State House reporter myself, one of the things that I've seen is it's gone from being the interlopers who are trying to do something and let's be suspicious of them and tie them down with all these different regulations, to, hey, we have a constituency to defend here. And maybe that's part of the change in the mindset of a lot of congressmen who now have an industry to defend.
Yeah, I think so. I think that you see it. I think that one of the challenges that we have, but it's also a benefit, and that is that by and large, this is an industry that is regulated and taxed at the state level. And so at the federal level, the level of interest in our industry is more as a job issue. Like, this is a business in my congressional district, and I do not want to see them harmed. And I think that is where we've gotten to, where we've, we're in 44 states, and we have, significant economic interest and significant economic footprint. And what I've seen in my time in this job has been, when I go to places, whether it's, the Meadows in Pennsylvania or somewhere in Oklahoma or some tribal property in California, it's very easy for me to talk to somebody who was around before the casino came. And in every single one of those conversations, it is what a positive impact it was to bring the casino to a place that was forgotten by industry, by manufacturing. It became part of the Rust Belt, or in some of these tribal places. This has been transformational for those of us in this tribe who were literally beggars to the federal government with absolutely no financial independence. We now have that, and we have that because of gaming and because of the casino. And so I think that we have a deep bench of people that not only appreciate us as a mainstream industry, but actually will go to bat and defend us because of what we mean in the communities in which they live.
Any other issues you think folks should be aware of that our AGA priorities?
Well, I think that one of the things that we're really happy and excited about is the continued growth and evolution in the industry. Whether it's the digital, and this evolution really that had really started maybe pre-COVID, but really accelerated during COVID, and that is the evolution of many who were, I might call them, the champions of brick and mortar, who also recognized that the online dynamic of the industry was not either or, and that this was not a zero sum, and that it could be additive. And I think that almost every one of the people that have been in the industry for a long time, long-time brick and mortar guys who maybe in the early days said, wow, this looks like Barnes and Noble and Amazon, they've actually come to believe that, I may only get somebody to visit my property 5 or 10 times a year, but I want to have a relationship with them 365 days a year. I want to know what Frank likes to eat. I know what kind of bands, I want to know what kind of bands he's interested in, what sports he wants to bet on, and other types of things, because I can have a relationship with him and my customers even if they can't visit my property as much. And I think that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that people understand how the industry is evolving, and then better understand what are the challenges to affect those opportunities.
One of the things that I've observed is that there's a bit of an integration of different kinds of entertainment media. And maybe the best single example of that is Disney.
Yeah.
A few years ago, Disney was doing everything it could to keep casinos out of Florida. Today, as owners of ESPN, they are very happy to have DraftKings advertising.
Yeah.
I guess maybe as a final question, if you were to look out at the industry several years hence, what would it look like?
Well, I think it's going to continue to evolve, and I think that that's kind of a hallmark of this industry. It's a place that started from right here, right? Well, this is an industry that started in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and is now in 44 states, and we're close to 1,000 casinos across the country, and we've got sports betting and iGaming, verticals that are growing, with considerable, rapidity. And so, what does the world look like in 3-5 years from now? I think that your comment about Disney is very kind of, it foretells where we are. I mean, Bob Chapek, the CEO of Disney, talking about, sports betting and the promise of gaming as the CEO of Disney is a remarkable thing, and it really to see that and hear that it really says, look, we're as mainstream as it gets. And if we can get, that, the CEO of Walt Disney to talk about the gaming industry as a great opportunity for their company, and not worry that creates reputational challenges for a company that is incredibly protective of their brand, says a lot for the industry, and it speaks a lot to what our future is going to look like.
That is a good note on which to end.
Yeah.
Bill, thank you. It's lightning as always.
No, thank you so much.